Hello, here we are at 1 o'clock during Building Trades Week on a very cold Thursday, but not as cold as yesterday, I guess. So our temperature climbed up a little bit today. So quick housekeeping. I am Kate Lee. I am the Executive Director of Education and Workforce for the South Bend Regional Chamber. Behind the South Bend Regional Chamber Square is Allison Herzig, who's doing all the magic in the background and making sure she's going to drop some fun facts in the chat. She's also made sure all these schedules collide so that our students could be here with our guests. So we appreciate that. Please use the chat function. Everybody is muted, but we want to hear from you. So use the chat function if you have any questions during the session, and we will relay those questions to our guests. Also, any comments. The session is scheduled for 30 minutes. So paste your questions and put them in there. Don't save them all to the end so we have time to answer those. We'd really appreciate that. We want to thank our sponsors for Building Trades Week 2022, including our premier sponsor, St. Joe Valley Building Trades. Allison will recognize the rest of the sponsors in the chat. And you can also visit the Building Trades Week landing page, which we encourage you to do. Hope you've already been there, to learn more about our sponsors, the businesses who are participating, and facts about careers in the building trades. So we are excited to welcome Mark Scott, founder of Mark Scott Homes, and Jason Fischer, vice president of Mark Scott Homes. This session is going to provide an overview of careers in residential construction. So I'm going to start with some questions, but again, encourage everyone who's out there to drop questions in the chat. And if you can drop which school you're from in the chat as well, that would be wonderful. So thanks for being here, Mark and Jason. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'll start with, how long have you been building homes and how did you get started?
So for me, I actually got my builder's license in Michigan in 1988, and I did it just as a hobby. I actually made it a full-time career in 1996, so I think we're now in our 26th year of building. So basically, my start was this: I was a mechanical engineer. I design special machines. So here's something that you may relate to, but I was in actually high school. I was a sophomore and I wanted to be an architect. And I had a teacher that actually talked me out of it and said, you've got to be 1 in a million. They don't make any money. So I pursued a different career path. And it was a great career in mechanical engineering. But I ended up traveling a lot, and my territory ended up being the world. And it sounds great. I've been in a lot of different countries, a lot of neat places, but when you're there a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you have a wife and you have kids, it becomes very difficult. And so anyway, I knew I could always step back and get out of that and get back to a local company. But I still had this desire for many years to be an architect or designer. And I had a friend that wanted a house built, and I thought, hey, this is my opportunity to change careers. So I just said, I'm leaving this business in special machine design, and got into home building.
That was a big, bold jump.
It was a big, bold jump.
And you started pursuing like what you really wanted to do. So that's pretty amazing.
Yep.
Good for you. Although traveling the world does sound awesome, but I get you. And at some point, even that gets old.
It does.
How about you, Jason?
So my background actually, I actually studied architecture in school. So architecture was really kind of my passion for quite a while. And I did dabble in doing some music things for a while. So I kind of went back and forth between the two. And then a few years back, our paths crossed, and kind of never looked back since then.
So no teacher stopped you.
No one stopped me. Yep.
Yeah. So Mark needs to go back to that teacher and go, all right, now see, I thank you for the adventures of my other career, but you slowed me down a little bit. But as we talked about before we even started, like all roads kind of lead to that thing. So what did you learn in your career, your pre Mark Scott Homes career that you bring to this, that you feel like this is the path you were meant to be on?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I had a lot of different jobs in the mechanical engineering field. But one thing I always did is I always applied myself, and I always gave 110%. And the skills that you learn along the way, every one of them was applicable to the home construction business. Even so much, not only do we build homes, but we design homes as well. And so all that skill set certainly transferred. The synergies between almost any job, if you want to absorb it, learn it, apply yourself, you will use it one day. And so although it sounds like it was a big jump, dissecting things down into small pieces, it's just a different industry. So I think I leveraged everything that I gained in those years of mechanical engineering and traveling, and the skill sets that I had the opportunity, and I brought them into the home construction and design business.
Excellent. Which leads me into, you and your team build beautiful custom homes. Can you explain to the students how that works? Like internally, do you have an architect, work with theirs, subcontract, all or some? What's your system look like?
Yeah, so we kind of have a couple different things. So we do work with architects outside of us, and so probably maybe somewhere around about 35% of the homes we do are designed by an outside architect, and the homeowners come to us. But a lot of the remainder of the ones, the homeowners come to us to actually look for help designing and starting the whole process. So we start that from scratch. We don't, buy a home plan on the internet. It's something we really sit down to understand what their needs, what their desires are, and really create something from scratch of what they're looking for. A lot of what we do is kind of unique to maybe what some of the homes, or a lot of ours are lake homes. And so a lot of ours are second and third, fourth home for these homeowners. So these are their vacation homes that they come for the weekends or the summers. And it's a lot of it is centered around Lake Michigan or these other lakes in the area.
I can add one thing to that I think is, so when we got into the business, obviously, if you just look at the construction market, and we recognized, it was kind of a 3-tier. We considered, hey, there's a lower end market, smaller homes, smaller price tags, a medium end market, and then a very high end market. And we always had a desire to do the unique and do the custom work. And so with that, we made sure that everything that we did was the very best you could do. And the reason I say that is, we didn't want to be a marginal builder, marginal designer. We wanted to be the very best. And that's not so much about us as it is about the gifts that we have and how we apply ourselves. And we always recognize too, it's not a perfect world. We make mistakes, but you learn from mistakes. So they're not failures if you don't replicate them. And so we learned a lot. And we just kept taking those steps forward, and we got a reputation that's enabled us to really do what we do today.
Nice. So what does your team look like? How many people are there that work for Mark Scott Homes, and then what do you subcontract out, and kind of explain that?
Good question. So our particular team, we have actually 3 part-time designers. One has his master's, 2 are actually in a design architectural program at a local university. My wife does all the accounting and bookkeeping. Jason really handles the operations and project management. I do a lot of the sales and the estimating. And then we have project managers, and we have a team of guys in the field to really we don't so much focus on self-performing things as to keep things moving. There's always hiccups, I think, in every business. And what we find is if we need to apply our guys to get something done to keep a schedule on track, that's what we do. So basically, Kate, we subcontract, I would say 98% of our work out to subcontractors and individuals. So that's really what we do. Even though we're capable of that self-perform, of really doing anything except for mechanical works, the electrical, the plumbing and HVAC, because you have to be licensed in that field. But we have the capacity to do anything. So.
And so that means you probably have really great trusted subs that you work with who as somebody who's renovated a house while we were sort of living in it with project management is incredibly important. So
yeah,
that's what your team really provides, is that making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing when.
Yeah, the organizational part of that is critical, but the oversight is just as critical. And so I think we really pride ourselves. I mean, if we subcontract work out, it's still our job to oversee that work and to make sure that it was done with the excellence that we expect. So,
nice.
So it's that twofold of the oversight and the organizational part of it.
You can't be too organized in construction, that's for sure.
I think in any job.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
So are there any trends you're seeing in the industry, increased demand for certain things? I'm thinking about with sustainability being a hot topic, like that kind of building, labor needs, like, what do you say? Are our houses getting bigger or smaller? That's my other thing. Like, is there a trend there?
Good questions. I'll start, and Jason, I'm sure will add on to this. But so today, really across the country, I mean, this is countrywide. It's basically, there's such a high demand for construction, and there is such a low supplier. I mean, the demand is so much higher than the supplies, and same thing with the demand high. There's such a shortage on skilled labor. So that's prevalent really all around the country. And obviously the COVID, the impacts of a lot of things have not helped. So we definitely have issues getting materials. There's some that I want to say we've probably been waiting for 9 months to get. So we've kind of had to revamp our selection process. There are times now that, the windows that we order, particular windows that we order, they're 15 to 20 weeks. So if you think about it, I mean, if you're going to build a house, you put a foundation in, which happens very quick, and then you start framing, which can also happen very quick. But if you don't have the windows, we can't enclose it, so things can sit. So just the nature of things since COVID, and just this high demand and the need of getting more materials, and the problems that have become with these things have really been a challenge. So I don't know if you have.
Yeah, and I think like some of the things too we've seen with COVID, we see a lot of people moving out of Illinois and coming into Southwest Michigan, Northern Indiana. So there is a big influx from that. So in addition to just the regular business we look for, there's quite a few people just trying to leave the bigger populated areas, come settle into our area. And so that increased the demand. The line for the amount of people looking for project is way more. We turn way more than what we can accept. And then, with labor shortages, I think you look back to 2008, we lost a lot of the labor force. Some of the labor forces went into more of the commercial side of things with some of the Notre Dame expansions, and they took up some of the labor force. And so the labor force has never really recovered from that point. So there's quite a bit of variety. I mean, you really can choose who's the best people to work with, and really there's quite a variety of options out there.
Awesome. So this leads into another question. We're talking to mostly high school students on this this Zoom, but there are adults who may be listening to this. So what do you have as far as part-time or summer jobs and internships for students? And what can you tell them about entry-level jobs? How can they get connected with the team?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we currently have 2 interns from a college. We often take summer help interns, and I often say we can't get enough help. So if people are really willing to learn and work hard, I've always told people that if you're willing to invest in yourself, then we're willing to invest in you as well. And it's just something to think about, because some people show up for a job, have no desire to invest in themselves. And I say, hey, if that's the case, we're going to do likewise. So it's a job, and expect your check at the end of the week, but nothing else. And why waste your time? So the opportunities, though, really, for intern, I basically really believe that I always encourage people to follow their passions. And if you have an aptitude, or if you have a desire, even if you're not certain, because I was one of those too, that I wasn't certain what my future, what I really wanted. I had a twin sister, I think, that knew when she was in grade 6 what she wanted to be. And it took me many years, but there's so many opportunities. And so I, again, just say, hey, if you dive into something, get what you can out of it, learn, work hard, work smart, and it'll pay off. Maybe not in that particular job, but it might be in the next one, or it could be down the road, but it will pay off.
I think, in our world too, as far as, what's a good fit with us, the unique thing about us is we're custom homes, which means no two homes are alike. So we don't really often repeat the same things over and over. So for us, we're both very creative. And really most of our team is creative to really look into doing some real quality types of projects, very unique types of things that are showpieces that you can look and say, hey, this is what I did, or this is great. On top of that, we get to work with a lot of projects that are amazing views of Lake Michigan and other places. Things like experience, setting tile or interior trim or exterior siding and exterior trim types of details, or framing, a lot of the real carpentry and kind of the nice finished craftsmanship that you really get to feel accomplished at the end of the day. Types of tasks are really a lot of what it's great for someone who doesn't necessarily want to repeat the same thing day after day. It's a lot of variety in the different types of things. And hey, you'll be working on this project for maybe a couple days, a few weeks, and then you move on to another type of in that vein. So there's a lot of variety in what we get to do.
Awesome. So if I'm a high school student, maybe it's the summer between my junior and senior year in high school, or I just graduated and I wanted to come and work with you guys for the summer, what kind of skills would you want me to bring, and what kind of work is there to do?
Great question. So basically the skills that we really like are, we're going to meet with everybody, but we want people that are articulate. They'll look you in the eye and talk to you. Trustworthiness and integrity is key. But more so just appearance. I'm always too shocked what some people will show up, and first impressions, people derive, first impressions are so important, and, they're not fair, because we'd never know what's on the inside, but it's human nature to show up and to draw a conclusion just based on how somebody speaks, how they look. And again, that's not, I don't say that to discriminate, but you just got to really always put your best foot forward, and don't overlook those things that sometimes you'll be surprised how many doors open when you put your best foot forward. So I'm not sure if I answered that.
And I think really it's a willingness to learn. There's really no prerequisite. You don't have to have experience to know how to do any of these things. We really enjoy teaching those that have an interest to learn. And it's really, there's a lot of opportunity for what the future would look like for someone who would want to learn a trade, because there's not a lot of people choosing to do it. So in our scenario, we really get an opportunity to learn to be the best in your craft. And when you're the best in your craft in the residential construction world, people start finding you, they want to do business with you. And really, we work with some great carpenters that they've done it for 30 years and they're sought after. They provide well for their family and are very successful in what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I've been calling it skills-based entrepreneurship, right? So entrepreneurship is the big hot thing, but nobody says like, carpentry plus an entrepreneurial mindset equals a really great career, and making your own schedule and perfecting your craft is, which is why I say a basic business class is always a good idea for anybody who wants to go into skilled trades, to be able to maybe project management, how to manage your schedule.
Honestly, definitely.
Yeah. And back to what Mark was saying, just like the whole showing up, just the right handshake can make a difference, right?
Mhm.
We've all been there. I always laugh. We had a priest who used to sub at our church, and I called him the pull through handshake. Like he would shake your hand basically when you're exiting church and like yank you through. Like I'd be like, so you don't actually want to talk to me after church? Like, but sometimes you just know, like you get that feeling. So it is, those little things really do matter. They really
absolutely
matter.
And one of the unique things about the clients that we serve, we do typically serve very affluent clients, and they're very well connected throughout the world. And so one of the advantages, we don't just build something for them. We really develop relationships. It's very important to our model of business and how we like to do business. And so as we build those relationships, whether they're building multiple houses in the future, referring us to someone like that, we've really had the opportunity to meet, even in famous people, because of these relationships and what we're done. A lot of times they don't want to be broadcast about who they are. But it's just been some great opportunities, and the great people we've met and even learned from them over the years as well.
Wonderful. So how about both of you tell us about what your first job was? And if there's anything you learned in that first job that you still use today, like high school, go back in the Wayback Machine. Were you mowing yards? What were you doing?
So my first job was working for my grandma's neighbor, which was an interior designer. And I did it in my summers, and she would have me into her office and just like kind of all the crappy work that they didn't want to do, but it really just doing some organization and putting things back and away, and helping them pull things for the next meeting and things like that. And so that is like, honestly, I didn't think of it at the time, as setting me up, but I mean, that's what I do today. So many things about that really kind of was some of the basic things. And even moving on from that, all the variety of things that even I've done as, college jobs that weren't really related to construction, everything is built on what, so much in what I do in business skills, and probably the most asset I've learned in every job is my customer relationship skills. That's really probably foremost, I think, with everybody, but really everybody needs to learn those, no matter if you at some level, you always interact with a customer. And so every single one of those is built on the next.
I will say that first job sounds like a textile junkie like me's like dream job. Like, ooh, I get to touch wallpaper and fabric and like all that stuff and put it back away.
Yep.
Sounds awesome. What about you, Mark?
Mine was, I was actually a paper boy. I don't even know if that term is even used today, but I used to deliver newspaper. So I had a couple block, I would do this before school. The papers were delivered to my house, and I think I would get out there at 6 a.m. and get around a few blocks. And then I would actually virtually have to go and collect money at the end of the week. And so I did that for years. And I just think that, the personal skills that you learn, and like, I used to get great tips delivering newspapers. And so instead of just throwing them on the porch, I'd put them in the door, I'd put them in the mailbox, and just those little things, Kate, that you said matter. They matter. People notice. So.
They do notice.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the project management piece. So the communication is important. Is there any way that technology has kind of changed the industry and how you communicate with others or the work that you do? And I'm sure it keeps evolving. So just some examples of technology and how you stay on top of that.
Yeah, so that's a huge part of our business. I do have a little bit of experience. I worked in the technology field for a couple of years prior to working with Mark too, so I brought some of that into what we do. But honestly, it's the backbone of our business and what we do. We use an online portal with our customers, and so all of our communication. A lot of our customers don't live in state, so they might live in Chicago, got Texas, California, and they, do houses in our area. So we have to work remotely with that. We do a lot of meetings on Zoom when they're not actually here in person, types of things. But even our interns, everybody out in the field, they have an app on their phone that we have access to this. So that whether it's their time clock that they're punching in and clicking in, whether it's our communication, uploading pictures of what we've accomplished for the day. There's quite a bit of things, and then just, even basic business 101 types of things, obviously, that, we use to run the business. Quite a bit of different things. And everybody in construction, some people are great with technology, other people are not. And so we've really learned how to manage that and really succeed. And for us, that's one of the things that sets us apart from the average builder, is that we are a little more technology focused.
And I'm sure it's evolved even since you started the work. Like,
absolutely. Like, when I first started working here and we'd meet with a client and we'd start, hey, what are your ideas? What do you want to do? They'd rip out pages of magazines. And today, very rarely do we see that. So we're, they're saving their pictures on Pinterest and Houzz, and we're interacting back and forth. And because a picture is worth 1,000 words in our industry, it really, that is very true. And it really helps explain a lot of things and how we communicate both in the field to the customer, with each other. We work with plans, draw things on them. It's very important what we do.
Excellent. So do you have recommendations for students who on classes they could be taking in high school, work experiences? Like, you obviously said any job that you have is a great learning experience because of the basic soft skills and those things. But specifically, if they have the goal of going into building trades, custom homes, like, are there other things they should be exploring while they're in high school for your majors that would be really relevant and important? What recommendations do you have for that?
So I think a lot of it, so in my high school years, I always knew that I wanted to be an architect. So I'm like, the most logical thing in my mind was to take drafting. And so I took quite a bit of drafting in high school, and which was great. It did teach me a lot of things. But when I started talking to colleges, they're like, we don't care about your drafting skills. We can teach you drafting. We care about your art, your creativity skills. And so a lot of what I've learned through that is really developing your creative eye, the details, anything that would kind of focus on some of those things, get you a little bit further, because some of the other things, whether you take a class in college on, how to read a blueprint or those types of things can even be taught on the job on how those types of things. But some of the innate things of how whether it's something you work with your hands, if you enjoy working with your hands, a lot of us really like that type of thing. And so anything that kind of gives you the experience, whether it is a class or whether it's a part-time job or an internship, really developing your skill, those types of things. And then, like we've even said earlier, even some of the basic business or communication are really probably more important in what we see than developing the skill, because you will develop the skill on the job or through a specific focused class or something you do. But a lot of those other things get missed in the education world.
Thank you for reinforcing my belief that I say all the time, that every art kid, like all the art kids, need to be introduced to the skilled trades.
Absolutely.
Because I was the one, my teacher was like inventing classes for me by the time I was a senior, like, well, I guess you can silkscreen next semester by yourself in the art room. And I'm like, okay. But I was coming up at a time where they weren't saying to girls, or you could go up to Ben Davis and take welding, like, because you seem to really like that. Nobody was suggesting that to females. So for all you female students who are out there, and I hope there are some, like, be looking at this, because also this is a great opportunity for women to move into this creative field. So Mark, what about you on career, like class recommendations and things like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I was in high school, we had, and I'm sure I know there's vocational trades programs today. Unfortunately, I've also known that, cutbacks in school programs, those are some of the first programs to go. But we had wood shop, we had construction, we had metal shop. So again, all of those, it just exposes you to just a basic level of those things. And so if you feel like, hey, I really have an interest in wood shop, or I really have an interest in mechanical, building engines. I would really look at that to say, I just feel it's so important that people follow their passions. And if you're good at what you do, the money will follow. And so, for me, I think I was probably more directed when I was younger at, hey, these are the 4 careers that people make a lot of money. And it's like, to be successful, it's like, take these career paths. It's engineer, it's a doctor. It's like, but that's such a small, minute part of the opportunities that are out there. And as Jason said earlier, you can do extremely well in the construction or design fields if you just apply yourself. And so, I would say again, and just to reiterate, any business communication, those would be, great classes to take as well. So.
And you kind of touched on this in response to this, but this is like the final question, because I can't believe it's already 1:31 actually.
Oh.
Why is what you do a great career choice for students to consider?
Yeah, I love what I do. Even on, we kind of say there's no such thing as a bad day, just some days are better than others. But even on those days that are not the best type of days, I get to be myself. I get to really create a niche, interact with people, design, be creative. It's a wide variety. For me, I don't think I could do a job where I do the same thing over and over and create the same machine or something like that. But for me, the opportunity for variety, be creative, get to use my hands, get to use my brain, a real well mixture that it's just not boring, and it's something that really fulfills me.
Wonderful. Mark, anything for you?
I mean, I would just say it's the uniqueness of being able to do what we do every day that's so unique and different. And as Jason said earlier, there's no 2 projects, there's no 2 clients alike, there's no 2 job sites alike. So that just presents many challenges. I love challenges, and we get to do some really unique and crazy things that I just feel like many people run from and we run toward. And so it's those just unique opportunities that we get to learn from, and things that we get to do that just get me up early every day. And so
awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks to Mark and Jason, and to the attending students and educators. We encourage everybody to visit the Building Trades landing page. These panels are being recorded, so you have opportunities to learn from other employers, educators, and community partners. You can share this with friends you think might be interested who weren't on this session, parents and adults in your life, and make sure you explore that and come back and visit. And thank you guys so much for being a part of this, and stay warm.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.